This is a massive structural update that brings us right into the era of the lore codification manifest. We're going to examine the core logic engines, the thermodynamic constraints, and the recursive self-improvement loops that keep this crazy neon-shadowed sprawl running. Grab your data pads and let's get right to work. We've got a 5-part audit itinerary today. We'll cover the auditor's directive, the supergraph, the royal loop, ZSG gate compliance, and finally, we're gonna hunt down some critical anomalies in the manifest. Starting with Section 1, the auditor's directive. Let's establish our operational baseline. So, to really do this compliance check right, we have to understand what the governing metamind is actually trying to pull off here. Think about the jump from version 2.1 to 2.5. Back in 2.1, it was all about stable physics, right? Making sure gravity worked, making sure the digital walls were actually solid. But 2.5? This is a massive paradigm shift. We're moving into full lore codification. The city is literally taking its own cultural narrative, the local vernacular used by its mechatronic citizens, and actively hard-coding it into the functional substrate. It's synthesizing fluid, liquid geometry where the story itself becomes a physical law. It's wild. But before we get totally lost in the high-level logic, we've got to verify the baseline heartbeat of the simulation. And that heartbeat is exactly 50 milliseconds. This is the ocular feedback loop, the fundamental temporal pulse that drives the real-time telemetry of the entire system. Literally every 50 milliseconds, the core kernel takes a snapshot, evaluating every single physical and narrative state to check the city's health. If an action happens off that 50 millisecond grid, well, as far as the system is concerned, it simply never happened. Moving right along to Section 2, meaning as mass. Time to evaluate the supergraph. This brings us to the supergraph, which is basically the infinitely scalable, decentralized brain of the whole city. And here is where things get really fascinating. Logic here isn't just lines of code, meaning literally possesses physical mass. Think of a super important piece of city lore as a massive planet. Because of its sheer importance, its meaning, it generates actual gravity. So when the system searches for a solution, the query acts like a meteor, getting physically pulled down by gravity toward these dense, highly optimized clusters of ideas. They call this semantic gravitation, and it is just a stunning blend of geometry and cognition. Now, obviously, a brain this massive needs some serious thermodynamic boundaries, right? To stop the system from frying itself, it ruthlessly starves out unoptimized protocols, ensuring energy expenditure never exceeds the maintenance cost. It uses a K-winner-takes-all gating mechanism. In plain English, out of thousands of digital neurons firing off, only the absolute most critical thoughts get any power. Everything else gets shut down cold to save energy. There are strict, hard limits on the energy cost of every single thought the city has. And the results of all that ruthless pruning? By basically weaponizing the second law of thermodynamics, the system targets an absolutely staggering 99.9% theoretical efficiency. How on earth do they do that? Piezoelectric membranes. The city captures the kinetic energy of every single mechanical movement. We're talking the literal vibrations of the streets getting recycled back into raw power. It's so efficient that entropy is essentially the city's only export. Let's dive into Section 3, the royal loop, the engine of recursive self-improvement. Let's examine the royal loop, the automated pipeline where the city perpetually recycles its own substrate. It uses a process called invariant bit injection. Basically, the system observes raw, chaotic entropy out in the simulation, derives a brand new mathematical law from it, and directly injects it as a C++ patch right into the city's compliance mask. Then it automatically triggers a mandatory callback to the physics core to make sure this new rule didn't just break the universe. It's literally evolving itself, converting chaos into unyielding physical law, without a single human ever touching a keyboard. I absolutely love this phrase because it perfectly captures the philosophy of the royal loop. The king is the code, and the code is never finished. Metatropolis isn't a static environment for its inhabitants. It's a permanent 24/7 laboratory of automated growth that models how intelligence scales over time. The city exists.
Breaking news report. Sector Row 7 initiates Delta reconfiguration. Energy output at critical levels.
Welcome to the Metatropolis. Global markets surge as quantum advancements revolutionize the sector.
The learning process. Learning is not done through averaging weights,